Well, it's that time of year again. Scary things are happening. And check this out. Nothing much scarier than the KKK. Well, how about the crazy cat lady that lives down on this corner of the street there? Hey, so I'm on my lunch break. It's about noon. And I'm working in a townhouse association. And these are all high-rise 2- and 3-story buildings. Looks like they're all 3 stories. But we're doing an unusual pruning job here. Well, let me back up. It's not unusual because it is so commonly done. What we are dealing with is a complex that was planted with trees that get too big for their locations. Some of the choices of the trees are absolutely wrong. You know, they've got these big wide spreading trees that grow into the building, grow over the road, they get hit by the moving trucks. You know, so now that the trees have reached somewhat not even maturity, they're overwhelmingly large. So we've got a problem. There's where I feel like a hypocrite, because I'm always talking about how harmful it is to top trees and how it changes the growth pattern of the trees. Well, because of the choices of the trees in this complex and the need to live here, people have to contain these trees. So because the original landscape contractor designer did not pick appropriate trees, the maintenance requirements for the trees in this complex are annual. Every single year, they've got to come in here and push these trees back. If they wait 2 or 3 years, then things get out of control and they've got to cut them harder than ever, and that makes things even worse. So poor choices equate to long-term maintenance costs as well as poorly pruned trees. Now, the trees actually look pretty good. Aesthetically, they look like, well, basically big bushes. But there's all kinds of problems associated with doing that. When you make outside cuts all the way around, the resulting new growth comes out in multiples, and in many cases that creates heavier branches than if the tree was allowed to grow more natural. A lot of these trees are growing right up next to the buildings, so when the wind blows, it brushes the building. The homeowners here or the renters, they complain, and the management company just puts it in their budget to keep these things shaped every year. And, you know, frankly, this is a big part of our income, you know, maintaining these improperly planted homeowner association complexes. Now, my big issue is, why wasn't an arborist called in the very beginning stages? Why wasn't a professional that understands the right trees asked to choose the trees rather than the landscape architect who said, oh, let's have pistache trees because they have pretty fall color, and let's have the purple leaf flowering plums because they have a purple color, and oh, let's put in crepe myrtles everywhere right up next to the buildings because they flower. I mean, the decision making is about aesthetics, and it shouldn't be. I mean, aesthetics are important, but it should be more about what is appropriate. And in many cases, there's 5 or 6 trees planted in a spot where there should only be 1 tree. So I know initially they want the place to look good so they can sell the units. And that is what it's really all about. It's all about money. It's all about the initial developer doesn't really care. He just wants to get this place sold. The landscape architect, you know, they want the place to look pretty, so they put in, you know, stuff with a nice assortment of colors. And there's no thought for the longevity of the complex. I don't know. It is job security for me, but I just feel like I'm doing something wrong every time I do one of these jobs. You know, people move into these complexes, you know, that are very tight and close together, and they like the feeling of nature. So the contractors that build these places put in lots of trees, but they make so many mistakes. Here a tree is encapsulated with a root barrier, and it is going to foreshorten the life of this tree which could be a nice tree, which is really kind of sad. And when you put a tree in bondage like this, the roots just wrap up on themselves. In many cases, look at this. That is some serious girdling. That just shortens the life of the tree. So what's the point? I don't get it. And the gardeners, the landscapers, they just butcher all the small trees. They keep them all down to bushes. These are Japanese maples. They should be beautiful, assets. Some of the choices that I see, like the Chinese pistache, it's a beautiful tree, but you don't plant it where it's going to grow up and get all over the building. And as you can see, this is a young tree. This tree has barely got a foothold on life. What's it going to be like in another 10 years? It's already all over the building, so our job is to contain these trees. And you can see everything is really tight in here. Here's a tree that we've finished. It doesn't look too bad, but we had to shape it all the way around. And we did the same with all these purple leaf flowering plums. The flowering plums have got their own individual problems. They planted birch trees, some of them right next to the buildings. So when the wind blows and the branches brush up against the buildings, that causes problems. Look at that, man. Everybody in this complex has got a dog. That was another one of our unfortunate things we had to deal with. Dog crap everywhere. So these trees here, this is almost done. I've got the one in the back that I've got to finish off. These are some crepe myrtles. And you can see how much I had to take off in order to keep these contained. And it goes against what a tree really should be in order to develop properly. And right around the corner from this job, I spotted some topped redwood trees. They're developing multiple tops. Now contrast that with what a redwood tree should look like. It's a tall, single leader that should not be altered. And I can go on and on about what happens when you top a redwood tree, but I think a lot of you are starting to understand that by now. Hey, thanks for watching.